Hi, I'm Sarah. This is Hardcover Hearts, and I've been incredibly busy with my new job, and it is really taking a hit on my reading and filming / editing time. So happy to be back. So the first book I want to talk about is a book, ironically, by a writer who teaches at UC Berkeley right here in the town I live. And her name is Michell, and this is called Excavations. This book was like K-drama, and I mean that in the best way possible. So for me, a K-drama, when it's done really well, has this really fantastic narrative arc and takes you in a lot of different places, is open to different genres and storylines opening up a little bit. And it had a lot of the same themes that you'll see in many K-dramas, and corruption, power, the voiceless, bullying, land deals. All of those things are included in here. In this book, we meet Sai and Jay, and they are a married couple with 2 children. Sai was a journalist, and she has given all that up, and she is a stay-at-home mom for these 2 young boys, and she is not really fulfilled with her life. She is really ambivalent about motherhood, misses the action and the intensity and the intellectual rigor that she had as a journalist. A bulletin comes over the television that announces that there has been a horrible, catastrophic accident in town. One of the largest skyscrapers has actually collapsed, and she immediately knows that her husband is there on site. He was supposed to be leading up putting in a pool at the top, very pinnacle of this skyscraper. And so immediately she's thrown into chaos. But her journalistic instincts and her connections start to come to bear as she tries to figure out, where is her husband? What happened to him? She also uses this as an excuse to drop her kids off with the grandparents, the grandmother, and then leave and really start to find out what happened. And she starts to inch her way into places she shouldn't be as just a regular person, but she's, again, using her journalistic influences to uncover a lot of things. As she's doing this, she goes to the morgue, and she shows up one of the first people at these stations where they're bringing bodies, and she doesn't find her husband. She keeps looking, and she's not finding him, and it makes no sense. He should be there. He was a very important person in this construction company. There's no way he wasn't there. Then she starts to hear some confusing stories that he wasn't on the top floor, he was in the basement. And she can't figure out why he would be in the basement. But then it's even more terrifying, because how would someone survive in the basement of a skyscraper that collapsed? So this starts her on a journey of trying to find out what happened, what her husband was involved with, and we also start to get glimpses of their past because they met in college. And there's a lot of things that are not exactly what she thought they were about her husband. So that's one storyline. There's also another storyline with Myungi, and Myungi is the owner of like a cocktail bar, kind of a hostess bar, and she is one evening there at her work, and a man comes in, and instead of asking for one of the younger women, asks for her. And this is something that she hasn't experienced in a very long time. And it turns out he is one of the key people who knew that this building was not structurally sound. And she finds out a lot as he is spending time with her, including his plans to escape and leave in the middle of the night and wanting to take her. Well, these 2 women's lives cross, and to very interesting results. So it was twisty. It was captivating. I really thought it was great. Definitely one of those kind of thriller books with women at the core that I really, really liked. So then next book is this book. It's Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. I did this in audio, and it was read by, what is her name? I know I'm going to say the wrong name. I can see her face. I'll put it in the notes below. Great, great voice, a little raspy, perfect for this narrative. This is the story of a family in Chicago, and it's told very simply in a forward manner, as with a few of the main people at their POVs. So we have Julia Padovano, and Julia is the oldest of the Padovano family of girls, and she's got 3 sisters, and she lives in a family that's very close-knit in Chicago. Italian family, very passionate, very, very connected, except for the mother and father. The mother has been disappointed by the father and his lack of ambition and career goals, despite the fact that the man is lovely and kind and loves poetry and loves to recite poetry and just has this artist soul. But the mother has a heart that's that once someone crosses, they're no forgiveness. Very hardcore. And she's a little removed, a little abstract, and she kind of looks at motherhood as a job that she has to do. So she's got 4 daughters, Julia being the first one that we meet. And Julia is just a striver, a driver. She is obsessed with the fact that if she works hard enough, she can get what she wants, kind of like manifests it into reality through hard work and just steamrolling. She meets a man. She meets a young man in college. His name is William, and he's an incredibly tall basketball player. And he comes from a home where there was no connection and love. There's something that happened in his past that have led to an incredible amount of distance from him and his parents, and it's very hurtful for him. But he just doesn't know how to talk about it, doesn't know how to deal with emotions. But he is drawn to this family because maybe they have something that he lacks. He's taken under the wing by Julia, and she puts their future into play, including ensuring that he goes on for further education, becomes a writer, so she has a trajectory for how their life is going to be. We meet Sylvie. Sylvie is one of the sisters, and she is a librarian, and she is a romantic. She believes in love at first sight, and she believes in one true abiding love. And then we meet the other 2 sisters. One is an artist, and the other is works with children and works in a nursery and setting and environment. This is the story of disappointment, of deep betrayals or perceived betrayals, forgiveness, found family, and familial love. If you like a family saga, especially centering around women and complex women, like each of these women are very interesting. And if you need a book that is just comforting, even though there's complexity and challenges, and not every character is likable, this might be a good book for you. Then I got this out of my library. I was so happy to have found it. This is the 3rd Vigdis Hjorth book that I read, and this one is totally different. Totally different. This is Long Live the Posthorn! ! I'm still trying to come to terms with what that title means. And so if you've read the book, please let me know in the comments below. But this book had kind of I would say maybe a little bit of a Sally Rooney plus a Tesha Mosveg vibe. There's a funny darkness that permeates this entire book. We have Eleanor, and Eleanor is, I'd say she's probably in her early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s, and she's working at a PR company. This PR company, she has about a few other people that work there with her, including this man named Dag. And Dag is kind of annoying. She doesn't really like him. He's kind of a blowhard and kind of does his own thing and doesn't seem to have a lot of, is not very considerate of other people. Well, Dag out of nowhere just disappears and doesn't tell anybody else at work. And there's a very important project that he's been working on. And it is also very unusual. It is a project where the postal union in Norway have contracted with this PR firm because there's an EU bill being sponsored to change the postal service and regulate it across all of the EU countries. And this, as you can imagine, would have devastating effects to the Norway Postal Service. And so they have hired this PR company that she works at to help them do a campaign to explain why this is so disastrous, to put pressure on the government to fight this proposition. So there's an element of wonky politics and bureaucracy in it, but there's also like this deep malaise, kind of darkness. You just think about like dark winters, they're lonely and really sad kind of times. Because Dag, it turns out, didn't just disappear, but he also killed himself. And that just kind of flips everything for Eleanor. This happens at the same time that she finds one of her old diaries and thinks that her life before and the things that she cared about and the things she was interested in were much more engaging and much more lively. And she's kind of feeling deadened inside herself. And so that's where, kind of like the humor of Otessa Moshfegh in My Year of Rest and Relaxation, it's over here somewhere, really, really plays into this. It's that same kind of almost like scream in your pillow kind of vibe, but under the surface, and her writing is very sparse. It's very, it's not flowery at all. It's very simple. But it conveys so much. I thought this was fantastic, and now I just want to read everything that she's written, because from Will and Testament, the other one was something about her mother. I'll put a link to. I'll also mention it below. Sorry, this is when I work too much. The recall ain't all there, and then this is the third one I've read, and the range. Those two were very similar. The last two were very similar. Oh, Is Mother Dead? This one is completely different. And so now I'm looking at the range that she's providing just in these 3 books, and I can only imagine what else is out there. So I'm going to do some hunting for some more of her work in translation. Fingers crossed. I'm going to be able to travel to London in the spring. So I'm very much looking forward to going to Daunt and checking, seeing if they have any of her works in translation. At least more than those 3 that I've read. Then I read this book. This is The Perfect Golden Circle by Benjamin Myers. Now, speaking of 3, so this is the 3rd book of Benjamin Myers that I've read. And with Benjamin Myers, I read The Offing first. The Offing, I was book shopping. Last time I was in London, I was book shopping with Eric Carl Anderson, and he said, "Oh, have you read this? It's really lovely. I think you would like it." So of course I bought it, loved it, absolutely loved it. And then because of that, I picked up The Gallows Pole, which was kind of historical fiction from Benjamin Myers about a kind of gang in this village that took over and became counterfeiters in like 1600s, 1700s, something like that. And it was really dark. It was very violent, very masculine, very broody. And I did not love that one. And so I was hoping that this would kind of bring us back to the Love Benjamin Myers side of the house. And I have to say, this is closer to the offing than to the Gallows Pole. This is a story set in the 1980s in England, and kind of middle of England, I think. So we have two men, Calvert and Redbone. And Calvert is a veteran of the Falkland Islands War, and he's going through some trauma. And then we've got Redbone, who is kind of a ne'er-do-well, kind of a punk, who hippie, who is just kind of doing his own thing, living simply, but has like all these grandiose ideas. And these two get together and they start on, for strange reasons, they start doing crop circles, kind of, and one of them is doing it as kind of, Redbone is doing it kind of like a prank, kind of as a way to kind of stick it to the man or to wake people up and give them something interesting. And Calvert is, he's a different kind of person. He's going through something, and this keeps him up. It keeps him focused on something that's bigger than himself. And so they start doing this for very lofty reasons, and wanting to do these designs that mean things, and they're trying to inspire something good in through the awe of this feat, right, in these communities. But instead, what ends up happening is that people start to make money off of it, or they start to speculate that it's aliens doing it, not realizing this is human potential, this is humans doing this and putting it together. It was fun to read them, going out at night and trying to find the best location, planning these different designs, figuring out how they were going to do it, doing the reconnaissance, sometimes with getting caught and having to improvise in the moment to get out of it. And I just found it's charming. It lacked the resonant beauty and kind of tenderness that the offing had. But because these are two men that are both kind of broken in different ways, or struggling, I should say, because I actually don't think Redbone is really broken. I just think he's lives outside the boundaries of society and does his own thing, which I always love. Thought it was a good book, but not quite at the level of the offing. But, happy I read this. This is a collection of short stories. Usually in a collection of short stories, I'll try one, realize that I'm not a short story person. I re-emphasize that mantra to myself, and then I just dump the whole collection. But this collection really worked for me, and I was so happy. This is Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang. And this is a collection of stories, and what I loved about it is her tone is very slice of life, but starting with like immigrants and Asian Americans. A lot of it is set in the United States. And there's a tenderness there. There's it's not jarring. It's not shocking. It's thoughtful explorations of people's lives, and told in ways that I haven't really heard before. Very intimate, very, very close, very like you're right there with the person. I thought this was a wonderful collection. There was more that I liked and even the ones that I didn't like were nothing horrible, nothing that I was like, oh, I'd pan this entire thing. If this was the first one, I would have DNF'd it. Nothing like that. There were two stories I loved. One was told in backwards chronological order of a woman who was hit by a car, who was in essence living on the street and in her shop with her shopping cart. And you go back in time and trace her life. Very short story, really beautiful. I think that was called Lifan. The other story I thought was tremendous was Farewell Hank, where a young woman is invited to a party with her mother for a couple they don't really know. The mother knows a little bit better. And everyone is there to say goodbye, almost like a funeral while the man is still living because he's expected to die soon. Very good story. Yeah, there was just so much in here. It was a tenderness and a care and compassion about these characters that I found incredibly compelling. So like I said, I'm very proud of myself. I'm very happy to have found this collection since I struggle, as you all know, with short stories. So that's what I read. Let's talk about what I'm currently reading. We're finishing up this book. This is God Help the Child by Toni Morrison. And this will conclude our Toni Morrison Author Spotlight series. The next one, which I've already closed at this time, is the Natalia Ginzburg series. So we're going to be starting that next week. So yeah, it's going to be hard and good to say goodbye to Toni Morrison because reading so many back to back, we've read 6 or 7, and reading them all back to back, it's a gut punch. It's rapid gut punches. But this feels different. And so I'm curious to see where this is going to go. For my in real life book club and my work book club, yes, you've heard it right. I started a workbook club. We're reading Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. So looking forward to getting to this. I haven't even cracked it open yet. Hopefully I have some time today. And then with Leo from Leo's Little Book Life, he and I are both rereading this together. So we're doing a buddy reread of Donna Tartt's The Little Friend. And so I'll have a whole then and now video talking specifically about this. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so this has gone on plenty long enough. I'm going to stop there and I will look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much and we'll talk to you then. Bye.